Hi guys, this is Steve. This is Module 8, and without a doubt, one of the most important modules we're going to be covering, and probably one that you'll be coming back to time and time again. This has to do with covering the 5 elements. Now again, there are 4 main feng shui tools that I want you to become an expert at. The first one is the actual flow, manipulating the chi flow, getting it under control, getting into other parts of the house. The second one was yin and yang, and we actually covered that over a couple of modules. This is Module 8, and Module 8 is going to get us going on the 5 elements. And one of the things that you're going to be looking at every time you enter a new environment, and it has a lot to do with feeling whether or not that particular environment has a good balance. So like I said, we've already covered those 2, and we're now about to start maybe the most important of the 4 tools. Now, the 5 elements are actually representations of different types of energy that you might find in an environment. So don't get too hung up on the idea of water, wood, fire, so forth. They represent a particular type of feeling that in a correct balance makes people feel good. When the elements are not in balance, we have negative feelings. We have feelings that something's missing. Okay, so we're trying to make sure we get the correct balance in every part of an environment, whether it's a house or an office, a business, whatever. Now, the neat thing about the 5 elements, there's a lot of ways to actually create the balance. One of them is by bringing in particular colors. So the first one, the water element, can be brought in by the color blue or the color black. And certainly one way that I do it a lot. It can also be brought in by particular types of objects, like mirrors or glassware. I use mirrors a lot when I need to bring in the water element and I don't have other options. And it can also be brought in by a particular shape. The shape for water is like a wavy shape, like this. Now the next element is wood, and wood can be brought in by the color green. And it can be brought in by wood furniture, of course, wood floors, wood picture frames, lots of ways to do it. And the particular shape is a column. Fire can be brought in by the colors of red and orange, and it can be brought in by things like candles. Certainly your fireplace, if you have one in your house, represents fire. So does the stove. And the shape is a triangle or a pyramid. Earth can be brought in by the following colors: yellow, beiges, and browns. It can be brought in by bricks and stones. And the shape is a cube or a square. Then the last one is metal. It has a lot of choices for colors. White, gray, silver, gold, brass, bronze are all colors that would give you the metal element if it's needed. White is one that a lot of people actually forget, so keep that in mind. And metal can be brought in by metal lamps, stainless steel appliances, for example. And the shape is a sphere or a circle. Okay? So before I leave this particular slide, and this is a slide that you're probably going to be looking at an awful lot, remember that you can bring in an element by colors, by particular objects that have that element, and by particular shapes. And yes, I might as well answer this question right away. It's possible that you're going to bring in something that could actually give you more than one element. For example, if you bring in a white candle, certainly the candle represents fire, but the color white also gives you some metal. So sometimes you actually can bring in several. One item that I use an awful lot, for example, is modern paintings. Modern paintings have a lot of different colors to them usually, often a lot of different shapes. So it's a great way to actually bring in the elements in different, smaller portions. Every room should have all 5 elements there. But as you're going to see, just a little is all that's really necessary in most parts of a house. Now, I certainly could bring the elements in if I'm lacking it, or if it's too much, I could take it out. But that probably makes sense to you that I can't always do that. So there are other ways of actually changing the balance of the elements in a room or a house or a business. And these are the cycles that I can use. Now, the constructive cycle and the destructive cycle are the two that are most prevalent in most books. But I'm also going to give you the diminishing cycle, which gives you a third option. Okay? Please get good at putting your elements in this type of sequence. And we're going to start with water down there in the bottom left and show you a relationship. All of the elements have dynamic relationships with each other. Let me repeat that. All of the elements have a dynamic relationship with each other. And eventually you'll get very good at this to see how you can change an environment by getting the correct balance. Water in the constructive cycle makes trees grow, is one way to think of it, on making your wood grow. So if you're needing some more wood in a particular part of the house, you could bring some more wood in, or you could add some water, which will increase the wood. And there's going to be other ways to do it too. So water makes trees grow is one of the little sayings you might be using for yourself. The next one is that wood actually increases the fire. And that, I think, symbolically makes a lot of sense to people. So if you're trying to grow the fire, you give it some more wood. Now, where would that come in handy? Well, there are some people out there, and maybe quite a few, that are not real crazy about bringing red into an environment. They would rather stay more muted. So instead of bringing in more red, I can do it by increasing the wood. And how can I increase the wood? Well, again, you have 3 ways. I can bring the color green in. I can bring in some objects that have wood in it. For example, a wood picture frame, or a piece of furniture that has a lot of wood to it. Or I could even bring in some columns or something that grows vertically. Fire increases earth, and what I remember of it is that the byproduct of fire is something like ash or earth. So fire increases earth. Earth in turn increases metal. Metal grows in the earth is a way to think of it. Metal grows in the earth. And the last one is that metal in liquid form gives you water. And I've heard other ones where you, let's say you have a metal tankard and it's sort of cold and it's got some liquid dripping down the sides, gives you water. So metal increases the water. Now, I want to tell you something very important at this moment, that in the West, in our society, we have too much of 2 of these elements. And so often when you walk into a new environment, or maybe into your own environment, you're going to notice that 2 of these are very prevalent and probably a little bit out of balance. They are wood and they are earth. We have a lot of wood furniture in our environments. There's a lot of people that like wood floors, a lot of wood furniture. Okay? So we see a lot of the wood element, and sometimes that has to be decreased, which we'll get to. We also see a lot of the earth element in our environments in the West. Think of all the tile floors that maybe are the shape of a square. Okay? But the tile itself gives you earth too. Think of all the beige walls or beige carpet in our world. It's almost gone crazy. So we have an awful lot of wood and earth, and often you don't have to worry about them being there. They probably are in some case. So the constructive cycle, once more before I get to the destructive cycle, is this. Starting at water, water increases wood. Wood increases the fire. Fire increases earth. Earth increases metal, and metal increases the water. So let's say I have an environment that is lacking water, but I don't want to bring in any water features, okay? Or I don't want to put a painting up on the wall that is a seascape. I can increase the metal, and therefore that would increase the water also. That's the constructive cycle, and it's used all the time in every feng shui school. Destructive cycle. First one, water puts out fire. Make sense? Water puts out the fire. So if you have, let's say, a young teenager that really is crazy about the color red or hot pink, and you want to create an environment that's a lot better for them, more in balance, and possibly allowing them to sleep a lot easier, and they won't let you change the wall color. All right? What you could do is you could bring more of the water element in there. And how to bring the water element in there? Again, there are three ways. Colors are blue and black. There are different potential objects that you can bring in. You can bring in, again, a beach scene or a picture that has blue in it. Or you could also bring in the wavy shape. Now, where could the wavy shape come in? Well, it could come into a throw rug. Nice wavy shape there. Or in a painting. So, if I want to decrease the fire considerably, I can bring in the water. The next one is fire melts metal. Fire melts metal. So if you have an environment that has too much metal, I'm going to give you an example in a second. You can bring in the fire that will reduce that effect considerably. Here's an example. If you've ever been into a house that is extremely modern, that has a lot of metal and glass in it, a lot of folks out there will think that that environment comes off as cold and not terribly inviting. So what you could do, instead of totally taking or dismantling that whole room up, you could add some of fire to it. And that could be red pillows. That could be a painting that has a lot of red or orange in it. Okay? You could certainly bring in something that's pointy or like a triangle. So that one is one I use quite a bit when I run into an environment that is very modern. Another one is metal cuts wood. This one has to be used quite a bit when I run into an environment that has too much wood. Think of a library or a study that has wood paneling, wood floors, and a wood desk. Over the top? Yeah, I think so. It's definitely out of balance. It has too much wood. Will I be able to probably change those things? Probably not. So therefore I have to get creative, and I'll bring in some metal to get that thing taken care of real nicely. So metal cuts wood. Wood decreases earth. Think of the tree growing out of the earth and damaging the surface while it's pushing upward. So bringing more wood into an environment actually decreases the earth for you. So if you have an environment that has too much earth and you can't make any big changes like pulling things out, you can always bring some more wood into it. And hopefully at this point you know there are 3 ways to bring wood in. The next one, earth muddies water. So if you have too much water in a particular room, and you really have this thing about the color blue, for example, you can always bring more of the earth environment in to douse the effect considerably. Okay, and earth can be brought in, again, 3 ways. The colors are yellow, brown, and beige. There are a lot of different earth objects that are like stones and tiles. But you can also bring in squares. So whatever pattern you have on your floor, if it's square or rectangle, you're representing earth that way too. Can it be done with a throw rug? Sure can. So there's a lot of ways to douse the water effect considerably, and that is by bringing in earth. So that is what's called the destructive cycle. Now the diminishing cycle is the last one, and I don't want to give you too much to confuse you, but it is another option that some people find very helpful. Again, you're going to use the same sequence that you're looking at, the same sequence. So just get good at putting all the elements in this particular order. Let's start at water again. Water going now in a counterclockwise direction towards metal will douse the metal effect a little more slightly. And the idea is that water rusts metal. Water rusts metal. Metal going to earth, we can douse the earth effect slightly by bringing a little more metal in. Metal grows in the earth and takes up some of its nutrients to be created. So metal will douse the earth slightly. Earth to fire. Earth will put out fire. Maybe not as well as water, but earth eventually will put out fire if you throw enough of it on it. So earth can douse that effect of fire slightly. Fire will definitely douse wood. And if you don't put it out in a fairly quickly amount of time, it will of course go even further than just dousing it slightly. But fire douses wood. And then the last one, the last diminishing effect, wood will actually soak up water. So you got too much water, but you don't want to totally maybe destroy it greatly by bringing in earth. You can bring in wood and it will douse the water slightly. Okay? So again, I want to show you that there is an actual relationship between every one of these elements with water. If you remember, water makes wood grow. Remember, water puts out fire. If you remember, earth muddies water. And then from water back to metal, water will rust metal. So they all are dynamically connected. And one last time, let's look at the connections between all 4 of the elements to fire. Wood stokes the fire, or builds it up. Water puts out the fire. Fire melts metal. And then the diminishing effect, earth will slightly put out fire. So, a little bit of assignment for you. You want to go into one of your rooms tonight or tomorrow and start to look at what the approximate percentages of earth, fire, metal, water, and wood. You've got to get good at finding these elements in every environment you go into. So when you go into a restaurant the next time, please do that. Look for wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. You'll find it. Now, you may not find a particular element in your bedroom, for example, but don't panic. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And you'll have questions, I'm sure, about this. But again, this is one module that is extremely important and powerful, and one that you should be reviewing quite a lot. I hope that all made sense, and we'll get to you in Module 9 in just a little bit.